So yeah, I'm just back from vacation, and I was on Martha's Vineyard, which is where I'm mostly from and have a lot of clients. And I was reflecting on that we would probably make a video today, Andre, and I was thinking about this one client that I work with on Martha's Vineyard because our theme is anxiety. And in the summer, she really struggles with anxiety a lot. And she was in such a state when she called me that I thought probably we would need to do another 4-day intensive because she'd done a 4-day intensive already. But she was, you know, I wouldn't quite say on the verge of a breakdown, but she was in pretty bad shape. And so what it brought to mind is on our theme of anxiety, when anxiety goes on too long, it becomes depression. And this is where she was. Lots of anxiety from a kind of abusive boss combined with COVID, which is really exploded again in the United States and affects the kind of job that she does on Martha's Vineyard. And you know, what happens when people are anxious for so long that they get depressed is they don't know what they're feeling.
Mm.
And it looks to them, most of the time, it looks to people with depression that it's a thing that sort of snuck in the night and they caught it like a disease. But in my 20 years, 25 years of working with the principals, I have never found that to be true. What I find, Andre, is that there's a way to help people unwind under their feeling state. And I've created a method for that I actually invented when I was working with a teenage boy who was so depressed that he was on the verge of dropping out of high school. And when I tried to work with him with the diagram and talk to him about feelings that he was what we call outside in about, in other words, in the illusion that they were coming from circumstances, he had no idea what he was feeling. And it just came to me out of the blue to create this feeling, what I call the pie chart. And I divide it up so that people begin to be aware that, oh, they're actually not just swimming in one feeling, which is how you feel when you're depressed. I'm just depressed, or I'm just sad. So when we start to break it apart, people begin to get little slivers of awareness of other feelings. And then that usually will open up awareness of the feeling that they are so freaked out by, so anxious about, that it's plunged them into a depression. And so in this woman's life, she thought that almost the whole pie was sadness. But there was this little sliver of feeling devalued. And a few other feelings then appeared. And when we worked with helping her see that she was outside in about devalued, it was really the linchpin for everything else. It was really the feeling that was completely freaking her out. And so as that began to unwind, I checked back in and said, well, what about sadness now, which had been 90% of this chart? It was very small now. It was 10 or 20%. And so we did one more session, and I set it up with her as a sort of a mini retreat. I said, on your day off, I want to start the day with the session, and then I want you to use it as a retreat and see how far we can get without doing another intensive. And if we need to, we'll do one more session before I leave. And I checked in with her before I left, and she was doing great. So I thought I would share that because anxiety, you know, the beautiful thing about learning the principles and the single paradigm is you realize it doesn't matter what you feel. We have 1 to 200,000 thoughts a day. We're feeling all of them. We have no control over them. It doesn't matter how much they scare you, how bad they feel. The mind is designed to have thoughts and feelings and have them pass through you. So when you get scared by a feeling, just like you did when you came home in that story you told in our other video, and you got scared, you and your wife, by a really bad feeling. When you remember that the source of that is thought, it knocks the fear out of the ballpark. And you realize, oh, this too is a thought feeling. It looked like it was the world caving in on me, but this too is a thought feeling. And then you're restored to nature's design for what I call optimal mental functioning, which is you can have thoughts and feelings that really scare you. You can have thoughts and feelings that make you really sad. When I was walking around Martha's Vineyard last week on my vacation, the first time I went into one of the lovely towns there, where I've been off and on, either living or visiting for, 50 years now. Seeing everyone walk around in masks for a moment made me really sad. You know, it's just the reality right now, in many ways, is very sad. But it was okay to be sad. You know, I had sad thought, I had some grief. And then it passed, and then I was back to a calm feeling, and then I was back into my well-being. So I think as you learn about the paradigm and work with the paradigm, you become more and more resilient, Andre, because you realize that you will still get knocked down by your thoughts and feelings. That's just the nature of mind, consciousness, and thought. Is you think a really scary thought, you'll have a really scary feeling. You know, you think a really anxious thought, you'll have a really anxious feeling. But that's okay, because when you remember the source of where it's coming from, you realize that you have protection, that you're part of a divine system, you know, a built-in set of principles that are working all the time, that you are part of. And we have this gift of having thoughts and having feelings. So whether they're joyful or whether they're scary, it's all the same thing. And there's always more thinking coming down the pike and more feelings.
I love that. What I'm hearing from that is, even though if I've been depressed for say like 10 years or 5 years or a long time, what I'm hearing is that it doesn't depend on if I've been depressed for X amount of years, I need X in recovery. It can change in an instant. And then you're free from it.
Yes. Yes.
That is so hopeful and controversial in terms of most humans' understanding of how things work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've never met a depressed person that couldn't get free of the principles. I mean, couldn't get free of depression when they learned about the principles, sometimes intensively, because you can really dig yourself into a hole with your thinking with depression. But I've never seen it not work. So yeah, anxiety, you know, and here we are in a time, sadly, in America, where there's a lot of anxiety right now with COVID having resurfaced in a bigger way than it did the first time. I think it's more really than most of us can even, you know, digest. It's just so big. So I think it's very important to understand that it's no problem to be anxious. And if it gets to the point where you've, you know, been anxious for a long time and it's collapsed into a feeling of depression, that's no problem either.